Today we're diving into something that, let's be honest, sounds incredibly boring: academic citations. But what if I told you that behind all those brackets and author names, there's a high-stakes game of reputation, integrity, and sometimes just outright drama? Okay, let's get into it. It all kicks off with this sentence. Now, this isn't a joke. This is a real statement, published in a peer-reviewed scientific paper just this year. The authors were so fed up with being pressured to add irrelevant citations that they just called it out right there in the text. An absolutely unbelievable move. But what happens when you pull a stunt like that? Well, this is what happens. Retraction. The paper was completely pulled. This one sentence basically exposed a huge academic sin, and yeah, the consequences were severe. We are definitely going to come back to this full story, but first, we need to understand why citations are such a minefield to begin with. See, in the world of academia, getting your citations wrong isn't just a simple typo, it's a signal. In a field where every single detail matters, your formatting is like the first test, and if you fail it, well, that can have some pretty serious consequences. Just think about it for a second. If you can't even be bothered to follow the journal's specific, nitpicky guidelines, what does that say about the care you put into your actual research? For an editor, that's a massive red flag. It screams either laziness or, even worse, that your paper has already been rejected by another journal and you didn't even bother to reformat it.
So, how do you get it right? Well, most journals you'll encounter use one of two main systems. Let's do a quick breakdown of what they are.
On one hand, you've got the Harvard style. This is the one that uses the author's last name and the year right there in the sentence. On the other hand, you have the Vancouver style, which keeps things really neat with sequential numbers and brackets. Both are pretty simple on the surface, but trust me, each one has its own sneaky little traps. And these mistakes can be ridiculously subtle. Take a look at this example in the Harvard system. See that comma right after the author's name before it all? That's a classic mistake. It seems so tiny, who cares, right? But to a reviewer, a detail like that can just scream amateur hour. And the fix is so simple. You just take out the comma. That's it. It's a tiny, tiny detail, but getting it right is one of those little signals that you know the unwritten rules of the game. Vancouver's got its own issues too. When you're citing a whole bunch of sources in a row, it's so tempting to just list them out with commas, like this. It makes sense, but it's not the professional way to do it. The proper way is to use a dash to show it's a range. It just looks cleaner, it's more efficient, and once again, it shows the editor you've actually done your homework. Okay, but getting the punctuation right, that's just level one. The real art of citation is all about storytelling. The choices you make don't just back up your points, they literally shape the entire narrative of your paper. So ask yourself this next time you're writing. Is your paper a smooth, flowing story that guides the reader from one idea to the next? Or is it just a choppy list of, this person found this, and then that person found that? Here is a perfect example of what not to do. See how the author's name, Mariano et al., is the subject of the sentence? When you write like this over and over again, it just completely breaks the flow. It forces your reader to focus on who said something, not what was actually said. Now, compare that to this. It's night and day, right? Here, the focus is all on the information. The ideas just flow together and the citations are neatly tucked away at the end. The story is the hero, not the list of authors. So here's the big takeaway. Let your ideas lead. Put the citation in parentheses at the end of the sentence. The only time you should be putting the author's name directly in your sentence is when their specific identity is absolutely critical to the point you're trying to make. But the story your citations tell isn't just about good writing. It's about honesty. So here's a super quick integrity check you can run to make sure your work is rock solid and credible. These 4 rules from the Office of Research Integrity are pretty much non-negotiable. 1, your in-text citations and your final reference list have to match up perfectly. 2, everything in your reference list has to actually be cited somewhere in your text. 3, always check the details from the original source, not from some other paper that cited it. And 4, and this one is so important, you have to credit the people who first reported a finding. Getting this wrong is a huge ethical problem. And breaking that 4th rule, it has real-world consequences. The author of our source material actually shared this personal story. He was reading a paper and saw his work being cited, but the credit for a really key calculation he made was given to a totally different research team. Yeah,
That benchmark was his work, but someone else got the credit. And his reaction is just so human and relatable. He said, "Evidently, this situation made me very irritated." I mean, of course it did. This isn't just about abstract rules. It's about respecting the actual hard work that your colleagues and peers are doing.
And that brings us all the way back to the most serious offense of them all, the one that kicked off our whole story. This is the practice that gets papers retracted and can seriously damage your reputation. It's called citation stuffing. Sometimes it's a researcher adding a bunch of their own papers just to pump up their numbers. Or, as we saw at the very beginning, it can happen when reviewers bully you into citing their work, even when it has absolutely nothing to do with your research.
And we're back. Now, this sentence makes perfect sense, doesn't it? This wasn't a mistake, it was an act of protest against forced citation stuffing. The authors were basically backed into a corner and decided to blow the whistle on the whole thing. The fallout was fast, and it was serious. The paper got retracted, though the authors were given a chance to resubmit it. The reviewers who pressured them, they got banned from the journal. And the journal itself had to issue a formal public apology. It was a huge scandal that really shook up their field. So, in the end, our reference list is so much more than just a bibliography. It's a mirror. It reflects your process, your ethics, your principles. It tells a story about your work. And the only question left is, what story are you telling?